Chapter 12, Example 2. We wonder if the amount of fertilizer used will have an impact on the tomatoes. Design an experiment which uses the full amount recommended, half the recommended amount, and no fertilizer. Okay, so we still have a factor of the fertilizer. We have 3 levels now. Where you have no fertilizer, 1/2, and the full amount. Okay, and so the treatments will be similar. We just have an extra treatment, and now they'll line up with the levels. Again, that won't always be the case, but here it will be. So let's go to the diagram, and then this example, we're going to write up exactly what's going on. We're going to do a nice write-up of it. So we're going to start with our 24 tomato plants. And we're going to randomly assign them into groups. Okay, just like last time. Okay, so group 1 is going to have 8 plants, group 2 will have 8 plants, and group 3 will also have 8 plants. Each treatment is where they're receiving the fertilizer. So treatment 1 is our control, they receive no fertilizer. Treatment 2 will receive half the recommended dose, and treatment 3 will receive a full amount of fertilizer. And when we're done, we will compare juiciness and tastiness. Okay, very similar to what we did on the previous example. We just have an additional level in this now. So we want to write this up. We want to do a good paragraph on this, explain what you're doing. If you're doing a paper or whatever, you're doing some sort of experiment, you need to write up a few paragraphs explaining exactly what you're going to do. So I want to know whether tomato plants grown with Optigrow fertilizer yield tastier, juicier tomatoes than plants raised in similar circumstances but without the fertilizer. I'll test this by conducting an experiment that will conclude with a panel of judges rating the tomatoes on a scale from 1 to 10 on juiciness and taste. You can come up with whatever you need there, you just need some sort of way to evaluate it. You could do a taste test with people, just whatever, which is essentially what we're doing, but you need some sort of way to judge that. Okay, I will conduct my experiment by purchasing 24 tomato plants of the same variety from the same store. That's going to be really important because we don't know if they're raised the same or not. They might, if they're not from the same store, we don't know if they're from the same batch of seeds. We don't know if the soil they were grown in was differently. Maybe the plants were fed differently. If they're from 2 different stores, it could have been that some of the plants were already given fertilizer, and that could definitely impact our study. I want to test the plants on 3 levels: no fertilizer, 1/2 the recommended amount, and the full recommended amount. So I will randomly assign 8 plants to each treatment. I will do this by assigning the plants numbers 0, 1 to 24, and use technology to randomly generate 8 numbers between 0, 1 to 24, ignoring repeats. The first 8 plants will receive no fertilizer. I'll repeat this process to select 8 more plants, which will receive half the recommended amount of fertilizer. The remaining 8 plants will receive the full amount. Okay, so I'm writing up how I'm doing the experiment, but I'm also stating how I will randomly assign the variables. That is important. Okay, we need to make sure we include all of that information. Okay, I will grow the plants near each other in similar soil, amounts of rain, sun, and similar temperatures. When the plants have reached full maturity, I'll harvest them and store them for evaluation. And there you go. So we've got to write all that stuff out. Be very specific in this. Okay, so again, I want to know whether tomato plants grown with Optigrow fertilizer yield tougher, juicier tomatoes than plants raised in similar circumstances, but without the fertilizer. I'll test this by conducting an experiment that will conclude with a panel of judges rating the tomatoes on a scale from 1 to 10 on juiciness and taste. I will conduct my experiment by purchasing 24 tomato plants of the same variety from the same store. I want to test the plants on 3 levels: no fertilizer, half the recommended amount, and the full amount. So I'll randomly assign 8 plants to each treatment. I'll do this by assigning the plants numbers 0, 1 to 24 and use technology to randomly generate 8 numbers between 0, 1, and 24, ignoring repeats. The first 8 plants will receive no fertilizer. I'll repeat this process to select 8 more plants, which will receive half the recommended amount of fertilizer. The remaining 8 plants will receive the full amount. I'll grow the plants near each other in similar soil, amounts of rain, sun, and similar temperatures. When the plants have reached full maturity, I will harvest them and store for evaluation. So make sure you can write all of that up and explain how you'll randomly assign.